the best RPG of all time, but I don't know, it's one of those things where I need to let it sit. But I'd say, yeah, I could potentially be in the camp that thinks of this as the best Final Fantasy of all time. And it's a series that I really like, so... I do think it has some things that I would see as faults, maybe? I mean, all games do, right? The first half's definitely more interesting than the second half. Maybe that's about it. A few things were tedious, like, if you want to save Sid, doing all that fish catching is... Honestly, it's just dumb. I don't know, a couple other things that were maybe a little tedious. But jeez, what a story and what characters. It's amazing! This game is a great argument for not having voice acting. I know a lot of people are like, how do games on the 3DS have no voice acting anymore? They'll criticize games for not having voice acting. I'd rather have voice acting where my mind, or like dialogue where my mind can fill in the blanks rather than have awful voice acting. It's funny, Robert and I were watching scenes from Dissidia on YouTube, and it was a reminder of suddenly Terra's voice acted, and kind of, I mean, it didn't ruin it or anything, but it was just like, yeah, the Terra of my mind is so much better than the Terra that is speaking. The Terra in my mind is a lot stronger than the voicing of Terra in Dissidia. Yeah, we've talked about Kefka quite a bit between me and Robert, about him being the only villain that actually succeeded in what he was trying to do. And that makes him really interesting, and it's funny, though, that I wouldn't want all villains to be like that. Because otherwise, every villain, like, a lot of villains, I mean, it could have been a caricature. And in some ways it sort of was. But then the end was, like, really telling about Kefka and his purpose. He's a psychopath. But more than that, he's an existentialist. Yeah, what's the point of it all? What's the... Like, I mean, it's funny, because you and I talked about... Like, what's the point of wanting to rule over a land if there's nobody to rule? But that was never the point. The point wasn't to rule. The point was to destroy. Because nothing matters. Yeah, because he's like, none of this matters. Love doesn't matter, life doesn't matter, because it's all gone. It's just poof, gone. You know, and everything that we see will be gone at some point. So, why not now? So, how long do we wait for this thing that's going to happen? Oh, that's it? Oh, okay. I thought there was something more. So, yeah, that concludes my time, I guess, with Final Fantasy VI. I mean, I could go back, and, I could go back to a save point, maybe warp away, and finish up Shadow's story if we wanted to, and maybe go back and get the Magicite. Or I should say, get the Esper from the auction house, but those are really the only things we didn't really do. Well, Gao's backstory, I guess. And Gao's abilities. Well, and Strago's abilities. But I didn't find Gao to be a very compelling character. The time on the last save was 30-something. 31, 32 hours? We could find out, I guess. We'll just load it real quick. and see what the time was, and then add 30 minutes to it, I guess. Maybe 45 minutes to it.
Oh.
34 hours, almost 35 hours. So about 35 hours playtime, and a pretty
You're
extensive playtime.
Well, you also consider you went kind of like a straight route or anything, because I was here.
Yeah, and that didn't include any grinding, except for about an hour of play that I didn't broadcast in Kefka's Tower, because I was like, I want to learn a little bit more magic than I have. And then none of what I did mattered, because then I took different parties into the different statues, and they ended up being pretty easy. And then Kefka, I can't believe I didn't die. And as Robert said, granted, Silas had had Genji Glove and Offering, plus Illumina and the Atma weapon. So things were pretty powerful for Silas. And 30 hours were me feeding Sid rotten fish. That's right. But thank you to everybody. This is a fantastic game. I will remember it for a very, very, very long time. And who knows, maybe I'll do what Robert's done his whole life and make it an annual occurrence to replay Final Fantasy VI. Maybe it can be my holiday thing. Every Christmas, Final Fantasy VI. Oh, so apparently... So here's a thing. Somebody on Twitter spoiled something saying, oh, one of my favorite heartbreaking moments is the suicide scene. And I was mad because I didn't know there was going to be a suicide scene. I was like, who's going to commit suicide? And then nobody does in my game because I saved Sid. And so, like, yesterday I even said to you, I said to Robert, like, who's going to commit suicide? And I even postulated who it could be, my two suggestions being either Silas or Shadow as the two characters most likely to, say, sacrifice themselves. And it was nice to see Shadow kind of attempt his redemption at the end. I didn't get the full gist of his story, obviously, because I didn't complete it, but clearly he was a train robber, and his partner we saw die and beg for Shadow to kill him, to put him out of his misery, and Shadow wouldn't. But then that's the last thing I saw. But it was clear at that point that Shadow was living life on the lam. But I suppose now that he's been part of the team that saved the world, that maybe it's okay to come out of the shadows. But we never did see... Well, we did see his face as such, because we saw his flashbacks. So... And it was an interesting Bonnie and Clyde reference. Because their names were Baram and Clyde. But, yeah, I think that that brings us to our conclusion. Thanks to everybody that tuned in. This was a lot of fun. And I love you all. And I guess we'll see you around. Bye. Robert says bye. And we'll do a playthrough soon. Maybe we'll do Chrono Trigger next. Anyway, bye.